Hi folks, Rod Fleming in the Philippines here. Summer is over. It broke yesterday, what a shame. That's a whole bleeding summer and not one single visit to the beach. Well anyway, we've just had to put up with it. So today, I want to do a couple of videos, fairly brief ones. The first one I want to talk about 4 approaches to autogynephilia. We're talking here about people who know they have autogynephilia and who want to deal with it. If you're in complete denial, if you're believing the stuff that TRAs are telling you, well, you're going to have a difficult life. Let's put it that way. It would be far better just to accept, if you're autogynephilic, that that's what you are and do something about it. It's not the end of the world. It's a manageable condition. Many men manage this. And they don't get lost, and they don't have massive amounts of surgery, and they, generally speaking, can have very good lives. Now, the 4 approaches start with number 1, which I call cold turkey. And this is the one which is, well, I don't think it's a very successful approach, but it's an approach. And in this, what you do is you completely shut off everything to do with your conception of yourself as a woman or of your erotic feelings as a woman. The whole lot gets shut down. Everything. If you, a lot of autogynephiles have some form of masturbation addiction. A lot of them are particularly addicted to what's called she-male porn, and all of this is not good. If you're in this condition, then you would want to stop all that. Completely shut it off. That's cold turkey. The trouble is that it's basically the same as suppression, or repression if you prefer. And these really don't work. What will happen is that it's really like putting the heavier and heavier weights on a steam, one of these pressure cookers. Eventually, sooner or later, it's going to blow. And typically what will happen is, 15, 20 years later, bang. Disastrous result. What typically happens with people who go cold turkey is they will do everything they can to masculinize themselves and to deny the possibility of this feminine element of their character. Quite often join the forces. You'd be surprised how many join the forces. Or they may have other highly masculine careers. Jenner obviously is a classic example of that. They tend to be extremely masculine men, and they might be journalists. Quite a few journalists are like that. They tend to do this suppression thing, and you'll project themselves into masculine roles. They'll often get married young, very young, and the girls they marry will almost always be extremely attractive, pretty girls. The reason there is that they're projecting the image of what their autogynephilic character wishes they themselves were like onto another. I mean, there's nothing wrong with liking pretty girls, but autogynephiles like them in a different way. Straight guys like pretty girls because, hey, they're pretty girls. Autogynephiles like pretty girls because they want to be pretty girls. Now, that's a big different thing. And as I say, the problem with this is that classically, this is your classic Western autogynephilic profile, that they come to age, I think the median age is 43, or it was in Blanchard's day, and then bang, the whole lot goes absolutely pear-shaped. They have to come out to their wife, their children. Quite often the wives will not have known anything about this, and their lives can be completely ruined. Not just the man's life, the wife's life, the children's life. I mean, essentially, excuse me, choking myself here. Essentially, you have to understand that for a child, even a child who's moderately grown up, late adolescence, early adulthood, who being told that his or her father is now a woman, has to deal with bereavement. The man they thought they knew has died. He's gone. And he's been replaced by this pseudo-woman whom they don't know. And so they have really tremendous emotional issues to deal with. And I have had tragic communications from people in these positions over the last few years. You wouldn't believe it. So, cold turkey, although on the face of it, yeah, it looks like a way to do it. Just hide it all, get rid of those magazines, stop visiting those websites, get rid of the clothes that you might have perhaps acquired over the piece, and just deny it all. Well, yeah, it sounds great, it doesn't work, basically. Now the complete opposite is number two, option number two. And option number two is the transition express train. And this is what unfortunately has become the almost standard practice, certainly throughout the United States and apparently increasingly so in the UK. And in this, you basically go to a therapist, and the therapist says, what's wrong with you? And you go, well, you know, I'm transgender. And the therapist goes, really? What makes you think that? Well, I feel like a woman. How the hell does anybody know what it is to feel like a woman if they're not actually a woman? It's ludicrous. It's a nonsense. And Mike Bailey rightly pointed out its nonsensicalness nearly 20 years ago. It's crazy. You can't feel like a woman because you can't know what it is to feel like a woman if you're not a woman. A woman can't know what it is to feel like how can a woman feel like a man? You know, this is ludicrous. Yet, this idea becomes so ingrained in Western therapeutic thinking, and I have to say that these therapists, most of them don't understand the differences between different types of gender dysphoria. They don't get it. They do not understand it. I mean, it's there in the APA, DSM number 5. And yet it's like, oh, no, that doesn't, no. It's like, oh, they're all the same. They're all basically the same. They're not. They're two completely different types of gender dysphoria that affect males. Totally different. And, you know, quite honestly, therapy is just not the same. Anyway, what will happen in the express train is that you'll then be told, right, okay, fine, yes, you're trans. So first thing you have to do is you have to get on hormones, you know, and then we'll start seeing you. Now you have to think about what you wear and how you dress. And then we'll schedule you for surgery. And it's all like you're on this express train and it just goes. And the individuals concerned, to a great extent, certainly going from the feedback I've had, feel that, you know, it's taken out of their hands. It's like, you're trans. Well, this is what you must do. You know, doctor's orders. Doctors know best. This is what you must do. And it's all complete baloney. It's total baloney. There's no one successful approach to dealing with autogynephilia because it's so multifaceted. And it's incredibly so. It's an incredibly complex and fascinating subject. You can't just say, oh, here's the one-size-fits-all express train, get on it and, you know, 2 years you'll be a woman. Well, you won't be. Let's be honest. And you only have to look at disaster areas like Walt here and how these people, if they go through this and they find out it's wrong for them, how embittered they are. And to an extent, I have sympathy. You know, people like that are, you know, they've been betrayed by science. But at the same time, of course, they then start damaging other people because, you know, they're complete narcissists and they just have to. They have to insert themselves into the debate. So those are the two. Now, number 3, the third approach, and this is the one that I think is really the most likely to succeed, is some form of management. The management form, I'll just refer to some notes here. In the management form, you let your inner woman out, but on a leash, right? You don't go rushing off down the express train tracks. You must, for this to work, you must accept that you are not a woman, right? You're a man with an interesting paraphilia, right? You're not a woman. And that paraphilia makes you want to appear to be and to be appreciated as a woman. It's not the same thing as being a woman. And you need to learn that. So in this form, what you would probably do in this approach, you might set a schedule. For example, you might say, okay, on Saturdays, I'll be a woman, right? Now, if it's not too intense, it might be every second Saturday, whatever, doesn't matter. If you have a partner, then you would have to discuss this with your partner and make sure that it's going to be a woman, obviously, because you're a heterosexual man after all, that she's okay with this. And you would then say, well, Saturdays I will be a woman and we will do woman things together. And, you know, hopefully a partner will go along with this and you might dress. Almost certainly you would begin staying in the house. Don't go out. Just don't. And hopefully that would be enough. And you would kind of allow this exercising of this character that you've got inside yourself, this autogynephilic artifact as it's called, to be let out, and so diminish the desire for her to be, to take over completely. And I've often recommended this before, and I will do so again: theatre groups. If you have a local theatre group, even a pantomime group, where you could possibly play female roles, or perhaps work in wardrobe, because wardrobes in theatre tend to be absolutely full of feminine clothing, then, and by the way, they're also full of autogynephiles, then this is a reasonable approach to take, because it allows you to rehearse this woman inside you, but in a managed context, in a context which is separate from your daily life, okay? And that's a really important thing, so that you can keep these two things separate. You can compartmentalize yourself and say, well, no, this is the bit of me that does that, but the rest of the time I don't. I'm just a regular guy. Don't believe the TRAs. There are millions of men who've done this all their lives and still do. Most men most men with autogynephilia do not transition. Right? That's the absolute truth. They don't. Lots and lots of men have some autogynephilia. It actually appears to be something that all men could do. But most of them, it's simply under control. They just don't do it. Now, another form of management, which I've mentioned here before, and I'll mention again, is talismanic. That would be something like, for example, wearing pink frilly knickers under your business suit, or stockings under your work jeans, or whatever it is that you do, or maybe just wearing, I don't know, earrings or something. Wearing some item of feminine apparel or a feminine trinket of some kind that acts as a talisman. That's your woman. She's there with you all the time. But the fact of doing that can kind of keep her in the box. I mean, that's what you're trying to do, is to keep this second personality under control. And you will have to be active about this. One of the things that's noticeable, I found noticeable about autogynephilic males, certainly those who are out enough to discuss it, is that they tend to be very addictive characters, and that's part of their problem, because they get addicted to this rush of, the sexual stimulation they get from playing the role of a woman, particularly in public. So you have to be really, really careful with this. Now, in the context of this management, one thing I would absolutely say is, do not go near any LGBT groups. Don't go anywhere where there are other politically organised autogynephiles, such as you find in the LGBT groups. Yeah, I mean, I know theatres are full of autogynephiles, but they're all also managing their situation, so they're kind of a lot cooler. But in the political context, the first thing that these people are going to try and do is try to persuade you to get on the express train. They'll be saying, oh, no, you've got to come out. You've got to go all the way. You can't be happy just by managing. That's ridiculous. The fact is, they will want you to destroy their lives, your life, because they've already destroyed theirs. And at the heart of autogynephilia is affirmation. And anything that an autogynephile does, no matter how stupid, she's going to want affirmation for. I'm still a sexually active heterosexual male, but I still had GRS. So they just had their penis inverted and stuffed inside their body, so they ain't never going to be doing that again. And then they're going to try and get other people to do the same, because that's, I did the right thing. Look at all you guys, you're right too. Let's all get together and be right about this. It's absolute nonsense. It's just an echo chamber, a horrible echo chamber in which these ideas just get more and more amplified. When in fact what they should be doing is not suppressing, but managing them, getting them under control. That's the third. And the fourth approach to autogynephilia is non-surgical medical intervention. Now, some writers, Mike Bailey's one, have suggested that they've been able to use testosterone blockers, and that has reduced the autogynephilic pressure, if you like. Now, I'm pretty dubious about this, to be honest with you. I can't see this as being anything more than a short-term relief situation where you try and address the underlying problems and try and deal with it in a more sensible way, without the person going into basically a sexual frenzy every time he sees an item of woman's clothing, which does happen. If you read Anne Lawrence's book, men trapped in men's bodies. I mean, some of the narratives are really, they're bloody hair-raising. There's men who, who say, well, as soon as I try and put on a pair of women's underwear, I climax. And isn't that normal? Wouldn't any man do that? And, it's like, no. No, we would not. You got to understand, it can get really, really bad and totally out of hand. And I think maybe in that sort of case, then perhaps these non-surgical medical interventions, drugs and so on, might help to get you just a little bit back on track. But I don't see that as being a long-term solution. I think that my own view is that management is the only way you're going to get it sorted. That suppression won't work. It just won't. It'll come out with an absolute thunderous crash, falling out of the cupboard you shoved it in when you're 40, 45, 50, in Jenner's case 60 odds. Or, you'll go thrashing down the express train tracks, and 5 years later be going, was that really the right thing for me to do? Was that right? The simple fact is that if you don't pass, you will never get affirmation. I mean, you might get affirmation within the little cliquey echo chambers that LGBT and these trans groups provide for themselves. You'll never have real affirmation. You'll never be able to go out in public and just be accepted as a woman, because people will know you're a man dressed as a woman. This is totally different from an HSTS. HSTS, by and large, have enormous difficulty passing as men. And people just don't take them seriously because they're just too damn cute and too damn feminine. So when they transition, they simply vanish, they disappear. In cultures like, in transphobic cultures like the US and the UK, they simply disappear. They're just gone. They're more feminine and more beautiful than most natal women, so nobody bats an eyelid. If you had Blair White standing next to you in the bus queue, you'd be like, she's cute. The last thing you'd think is, God, that's a guy in a dress. You just wouldn't even think it. But if it was Jenner, what's the first thing you would think? So you've got to be aware that the express train is predicated on a whole bunch of stuff that isn't necessarily true. And one of them is this idea of acceptance, the idea of passing. And that's one of the reasons why so many autogynephiles really hate passing. They call it passing privilege, and they think that HSTS are betraying, get this, that they're traitors to the trans movement because they pass. It's like, you couldn't have made this up. It's just remarkable. The actual true transsexuals are the ones who get vilified for this because they walk into a room and nobody damn well knows. Anyway, those are the 4 approaches to autogynephilia. If you have a partner, you're going to have to get your partner involved, unless you're doing it in total secret. I have to say that we don't know how many men who have autogynephilia simply are secret cross-dressers all their lives. And in a way, I think we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot by describing this as transvestic fetish disorder and all the rest of it. I mean, it's just autogynephilia, but in that case, in a form which the subject is able to actually conceal it from those around him, and that's a reasonably, I think it's a perfectly viable way of managing the condition. But remember that if you get caught, you're going to have some explaining to do.